Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm really excited to share today's guest's story with you all. And before we jump in, I'd really appreciate if you could take a moment and rate the podcast on Spotify or on Apple. And this is going to allow the podcast to reach more people. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Today I'm joined by Lars Willemse. He's a founder of Showcasing, which is a Web3 incubator. So myself and Lars crossed paths in Bulgaria during the summer in a little town called Bansko, and he talked to me a lot about NFTs, which I thought was really fascinating. And we're going to deep dive into all things NFTs, Web3 today, which I think would be interesting for a lot of people listening. So Lars, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to kind of get this conversation going. Like, I think we had some interesting chats in Bansko when we met, and I think there's a lot of energy that can be used towards sharing that knowledge with everyone. So I'm very, very happy to be here and to chat about Web3, NFTs, and anything else that might come forward.
Awesome, mate. So let's jump into your background. Like, how did you there's no university courses or anything, or at least not to my knowledge, so how did all this happen?
So I mean, I think most of the time when something like this happens, when something new comes, it's like you either read something about it or you hear it from someone. And I think that for me, it was I heard about that the Beeple artwork sold for like insane amounts of money the beginning of last year. So not this year, the year before, like around January, February. I think that's when that happened. And I read about it, and that's it. I did not know what NFTs were. I had no idea. And then maybe around the beginning of May that year, I had someone come up to me and say, "Oh, are you doing anything with NFTs?" And I was like, "What is that, NFTs? You mean NFC?" Because I really didn't know. And then he said, no, NFT. And then I kind of was like dismissing it already because I didn't know anything about it. And like maybe 2 weeks after that, at the time I was working for an animation studio as a COO in the US. And the CEO sent me a message, "Hey, Gary V," what is probably one of the biggest names in NFTs and Web3, sent a message on Twitter. He's looking to buy a small animation studio in the US, and he came across our profile and he was considering it. "So what do you think?" And I said, I mean, that's obviously a good compliment, but I think we need to know why he wants to buy the small animation studio. And then we found out it was because he was starting an NFT project called VFriends. And then from the moment that I understood what he was doing, I think that's when it all started for me. That's when I realized it wasn't just an image, it wasn't just art, it was actually representing some form of a utility or some form of an access pass to something. That could be an access pass to me to have a call, that can be an access pass to an apartment that you're getting to stay for a week, or that could be an access pass to an app, for example. So when that started to click, that's when I was interested and I wanted to learn more. And I think that's how I got in.
Wow. So it was pretty recent. So was that 2021 or 2020?
Yeah, 2021, because the NFT space really hasn't been a thing, really. I mean, there's some really OGs that were in crypto and like developers and stuff that probably were in it before 2021. But really, January 2021 is the starting point of NFTs.
Okay, wow. So I want you to maybe explain what you did with the apartment, because that's super interesting. But maybe beforehand, can you just make it really layman's terms about what an NFT is and why it's different to maybe what the current technology allows us all to do? Okay.
Yeah. I think the best way to explain it is just to kind of go on where it all started with, and that's the art side of things. So, you know, the painting that hangs behind you there, let's say the Eiffel Tower painting there that hangs behind you, you purchased that probably one time. And you paid the artist or whoever is the store where the artist has the painting, and you pay for it one time, and they never see any money for that again. If that painting goes up in value and you sell it to someone else, that artist never gets any income from that ever again. Well, with NFTs, that's kind of different, because when you decide to put that artwork for sale as an artist, you can put a royalty percentage, what means that every single time that that art piece sells again, when you become a better creator, you get a very small fraction of that sale. And that makes it that you can keep making income on something that you created. And I think that that's, like, for me, the best way to explain why it's really relevant compared to how it was before. But this counts the same way for other business models, because as long as you're the one that created it, or you're the one that came up with it, you should get rewarded for, you know, putting it out there and putting it for sale. So an NFT for me is a digital representation of an asset or something that you can get access to. And you could get access to art, like you could get access to music, you could get access to real estate, you can get access to, you know, many things. And I think that's the best way to explain an NFT. It's like you're buying something that is, let's say, if you would go on a Shopify store and you see Nike shoes, then you buy the Nike shoes based on those images, right? An NFT is going to function very similar. It's going to have like a shoe, and you're buying that NFT. And when you're buying that NFT, it almost functions as a receipt that you now have the ability to resell. If you ever wanted to sell that pair of shoes as on the secondary, saying, okay, I've used these shoes, this is the existing images of this shoe. So now you have kind of like a receipt of the proof that you own those shoes. That's like an example of what can happen in the future. I think that's how people should approach NFTs. It's not something that you should try to make, you know, millions of dollars selling profile pictures. What most people do in the beginning when they learn about NFTs. I think you should think a little bit further than just a money grab. I think you should really think about it as, how can I create an extra channel for my business to generate income, and having actual proof that you own that particular asset or excess.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people have heard of NFTs and they're just like, oh, it's like a squiggly digital image that looks ridiculous, and it's like $100 million or $1 million or 500 grand or whatever. Like Gary V, he made an interesting example. He was saying like the price that things are being sold for now, like baseball cards or like something that like a celebrity used 20, 30, 50 years ago, he was saying NFTs will be kind of like that. So like if Justin Bieber's plane ticket, you could NFT that today, and then that would become like a collector's item. So it's kind of along those lines as well, right?
Yeah, you could see it as a collectible too. I think that's a good way to put it. I think that Instagram just came out with a beta version of NFTs as well. So you can actually put your digital collectibles, they call them. So Instagram and Facebook are now integrating NFTs as well. So it's just that recently came out this week. So some accounts have this now available, other accounts not yet, but it will probably come fairly soon. But yeah, I think you should see it. If you don't see it as a utility, then it's a collectible. I think that means that you just want to collect something. But another use case that I will give you as an example to maybe clarify a little bit. Imagine a rewards program for flying. Normally that's tied to your name, right? Like Connor O'Shea, I have my Turkish Airlines points, and I'm flying all over the world, and I get more points. But now you don't want to fly anymore 20 years, 30 years from now. And now you have all these points accumulated and you get all these rewards. But that asset you cannot sell because it's tied to your name. Well, with NFTs, that would change. Now that's an asset for you that you could potentially make $10,000 from because it's worth $10,000. And why does the airline want this? Because the airline gets royalties when you resell your loyalty program to someone else.
Okay, can you explain that a bit more? Because like, let's just say that's the case. I don't want to use the airline. but I've created the NFT. So how does the airline then get royalties, or like how would that work?
The airline creates the program, right? So the airline is the one that generates and creates the NFT. You're the one that purchased it. So they are the creator, you are the buyer. That means that they get the royalties.
Okay, so they've already like basically selling tickets as a corporation will just automatically be an NFT kind of going forwards in some way, and they'll have rules built into that.
Yes, so they would just create like the same terms and conditions they have now, but then they would make it that you're not allowed to, let's say, sell that membership program for like less than a certain amount, or you could say if you transfer it to someone else, that means that you lose 10,000 of your points. Just to make it like that they're not losing money continuously as the airline. You want them to actually still get paid from you using the program. But if I sign up for a Hilton program now, I don't pay for signing up for the Hilton program, but I do start on the bottom of the Hilton program. In this case, you could skip the bottom part because by buying it from someone else, but then there has to be an exchange of money most of the time. So you could say, you cannot send it to your friend for free. You have to make a certain purchase to be able to transfer it to another wallet. So they can set rules that are going to make it that it's going to be valuable for you to sell your rewards program when you don't want to fly anymore.
Okay. Is there anyone doing that now already? Any
so
companies?
That's the thing. Like a lot of these particular elements, big corporations are testing the field, but they're not in the place where they're wanting to commit to doing that, because this is not like a side project. This is like you're supplementing the way we're doing it now for a new way. And I think that they're all very careful with making drastic changes. So I think that most of the projects that I've seen from big corporations are more like side projects just to test how does it work? How do you do this? So I think that it's going to come, but I think that everybody is still kind of waiting for the first person to do it well.
Gotcha. Let's jump into what you did with the apartment. I think that's a really, really cool use case. And I think that will really pique people's curiosity around NFTs as a kind of way forwards.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I was like, okay, so what's my place in this, right? I was learning and I was not really like having something that I would like make sense with my business at the time. Like I felt like, yeah, there's probably things to do, but I didn't feel it resonated with me personally of like a project that I could do. And then I thought, I was surrounded by a lot of digital nomads. I felt like in the place where I was, an apartment wasn't insanely expensive, but having that amount in cash is still like a big hurdle to take for many people. So I was like, okay, what is the existing model for housing? You either buy a place in cash, in full, you get a mortgage and you're linked to that mortgage for at least 10 years, or you rent a place, right? So those are the three options. And I thought, I think a lot of people would like to have an asset, but I also think that a lot of people find that very difficult in these times, especially in the Western world. So that's when I came up with this idea that why can an NFT not be an access token to, let's say, an Airbnb interface? And then I was like, how can I create value for someone that likes, for example, skiing? So that's when I was like, I don't like skiing so much personally, so I wouldn't want to be in a cold place like Bansko to go skiing, as Bansko is a ski resort by trade, but I really love being there in the mountains in the summer and being around nature. So I was like, why don't I try to sell the periods of the year as a vacation to people so that they can go skiing for a week, because they might like that, they might go every year. And then I was like, well, why don't I use the timeshare model where basically I make it very predictable for people. Okay, you get to go week 1. That means you get to go to ski week 1 for 10 years in a row. And if you want to go skiing in Bansko for a week, the market is about 500 euros for an apartment like mine, because it's really interesting. The monthly rental prices are lower than the weekly rental prices. What is kind of insane, but it is the truth. So what I did was like, okay, so 500 euros times 10 years is 5,000 euros. That's what you normally would pay if you go skiing for 10 years in a row for that particular week. And I thought, why don't I offer that for 3,000 euros instead? And then they pay me up front. And then when they pay me up front, I now have the ability to use those weeks of that I sold to be able to pay the apartment in full. And that's kind of what happened. So I thought, why not create like a login page? Normally you log in with your Google or with your Facebook account. Now you log in with your wallet, this the crypto wallet that you set up. And with that crypto wallet, you purchase that NFT. And now all you do is you basically connect your wallet, you verify the week that you purchased of my apartment, and then you go to an Airbnb interface very similar to what you're used to, where you can see the address, you can see the amenities, you can see the Wi-Fi, you can see the smart lock code to be able to get into the apartment, the check-in day and the checkout day with the times. And this made it for me possible to be able to build something that like I never had access to, just, you know, crowdfund something of value, but now I realize that I could, because an apartment or a vacation holds value. And we normally see it as, okay, I want to do it as a rental property. I'm just going to make money, but it takes you a very long time to get your investment back. Where here you get your investment back right away. Like before you even start renting, you already got your money back. So you don't have to do those 10 years of renting. So that's kind of what happened. And the other 43 weeks of the year that I did not sell those key weeks, I can live there myself. What is a huge benefit as well. So you get your money back and you can live there the majority of the year still. So for a lot of people between 20 and 40, I think this is very relevant to do if you don't want to have living expenses. So yeah, I guess that sums it up.
Yeah, man, that's so smart. Like what you did, you just basically got the money to pay for, because it was like, for people listening, you know, Bansko, it's very affordable. So I think what was it, 30 grand or something?
Yeah,
or 27?
it was 30,000. I sold first the New Year's and the Christmas week for 5,000 each, because they were more in demand. So I sold those for 5,000 each, and then I sold the remaining weeks all for 3,000 each.
Yeah, and that just gave you the capital to pay in cash the full apartment, which you're now sitting and talking to me from, and you don't have any more overheads with that other than electricity, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's obviously part of what you're doing as well. And it's also, you should see it as like peer-to-peer crowdfunding. So I try to keep it into my own network. So that's the one thing that I will say with NFTs is like, you should have trust. So I put an agreement in place, like a rental agreement in place, so that when you purchase the NFT, that rental agreement and its terms and conditions go into effect. I would definitely, if you do something like what I did, I would definitely recommend it, so you protect yourself. Like if something like really crazy happens, then you can, you know, really protect yourself in a way that it's actually in some way or form legally binding. So it's a good way to kind of get a bit of a lock on the door in this very Wild West world that is still not fully regulated yet.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I think that's a really important point, because there's so many variables there. And if it's a random people that, there's a lot of things, I guess, that there's no one to really report to if something goes wrong. Like you can't report to Airbnb. It's as you said, the Wild West. So let's say if I wanted to do something like that, or someone else who's like, you know, I don't have any tech background, I don't know how to set up all this technology and do it, like what would you recommend? Is that something that you can help people with, or how would people go about doing this?
So most of the time, to start off, I thought maybe I have something here that could be like a turnkey solution that everybody could use. But I will say that the one element that I need to know before I basically guide you in the right direction is, are you able to sell it to 10 people? Because if you cannot sell it to 10 people and you start to launch this NFT and 5 people have purchased it and you cannot get past the other 5, what happens? Like, maybe there isn't the funds to be able to purchase the apartment, and then 5 people have already committed. Are you still there?
You there, mate?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
You're frozen. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can hear you again, mate. Yeah, continue there. Just something's going on with the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, I was all of a sudden you were frozen. I was like, I don't know if he's there listening or not. But no, I was. Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, that you have to be sure to, that you can have the ability to sell all 10 or whatever amount of weeks that you are planning to sell. Because imagine you're launching that NFT project and you sell 5 out of 10, but you needed the funds of all 10 to be able to make it happen. Those people are not getting their money back. Like, they are definitely like going to want something out of it. And if you don't own the apartment, then there's no way to basically buy that apartment. So I think that's the biggest thing that I will say that needs to be in place. And that is that that you're going to be able to pull it off. Or maybe you've already purchased the apartment yourself and you just want to get a return. That's a great way to do it. So if you come to me and you say, I just bought this apartment and I want to do the same thing that you did to get my money back, then I say, okay, then you should do it, because spending a whole year trying to sell 10 weeks is still less work than managing it for 10 years. That's how I explain it to people. So I think it's a case by case, that if someone comes to me with a really good proposal, like, hey, I have this place, this is my idea of how I want to sell the weeks, and this is the period of time I want to be there myself. If it's a really good idea, I can definitely point people in the right direction to be able to set up the technology to be able to make it a reality. So yes, I can definitely point people in the right direction, but I will take a look at it from a case by case perspective, because not everybody can pull it off. Like, I one time was speaking at a conference and a lady comes up to me from London and says, can I do this with my $2 million apartment in London? And I was like, if you think you could sell the weeks for like 50,000 each, then I say, go ahead and try it. But my feeling says that those prices are not really a possibility. I think you need to definitely have like something that people can wrap their head around. And I think $2,000 to $4,000 seems to be the maximum that I think people are willing to spend up front. So that would be my advice, is don't go for the high price tickets, especially when it comes to crypto, because a lot of people might still feel skeptical about things like that. But I think there is a place for it. I just think it's a case by case.
Yeah. And kind of what you did is really smart, because it's a seasonal place. You don't want to be there in high season and winter for skiing. So it's kind of like a win-win for everyone, because you're most likely you would have had a vacant apartment anyway. And you are happy to leave for like 10 weeks or whatever that length of time people are in the apartment, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's just a way to not let it go to waste, and really, by it not letting it go to waste, you're actually getting your money back. I think it's an amazing deal.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Let's talk a bit more about your day-to-day stuff. So you're a founder of a Web3 incubator. What's that? What does that even mean? Can I explain that?
So I think from like how that all came about is that I was mentoring founders in Web2, and Web2 is like what we all know. So I basically help tech companies to set up their businesses, to get into the early stage and figure out, is there really a place for me in this world? So like they figure out, are they actually solving a problem that people need a solution for? And I just kind of took that concept and put it into place with Web3. So I basically did exactly what I did before with founders, but now I added the Web3 element into it.
Okay, awesome, mate. Yeah, it's an interesting one, I guess. Do you have any advice for people who want to get into learning more about this, or want to maybe start learning or investing in cryptocurrency? I'm not sure if you have much knowledge about cryptos with all Web3 and with everything that's happened in the last kind of 3 months, or with the crash and everything like that. Do you have any advice? Because there's a lot of snake oil in the industry as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the best advice I can give is go on to Twitter and follow people that are talking about Web3, and then jump into their Twitter spaces or their social audio spaces where they're speaking about everything related to Web3. And that can be cryptocurrencies, that can be NFT projects, that can be use cases, that can be how do you start your own. Like I think that's probably where I started myself, and I think I learned at a really rapid pace, and I got connected with the people that are now kind of like the pillars of the space. So because I was early, I met all the founders of all the projects, almost all the projects that became, fairly successful, just because I was learning at the time that they were building. So I think that's probably my biggest advice, is just listen to people and really try to understand like what is the space, how does it work, what do you need to do. And then when you find like the 2-3 resources that you need to be able to get started, I would just say dive into those as well, and then see, can I do this myself, or do I need someone else to help me on this journey? So that's kind of what I would say, is like that's how I would basically go about it all.
Okay, cool, mate. Let's go into some rapid fire questions. So if you could sit down with someone for 2 or 3 hours for dinner or whatever, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I have had this question before. I think that as an all like professional athlete, I used to play football. So I would go, it's either going to go 2 directions. It's either going to be like a hero of mine in the football world, but I think that for me, I would do Simon Sinek. That's the person I would want to have dinner with. And why? Why is because I think that he is able to formulate certain concepts in life in such a simplified way that I want to just like pick his brain on like how he was able to do so. Like how was he able to take these very complex psychological concepts and really make it so simple that everybody in the world could understand and feel inspired. So I think I would really just try to like pick his brain on like kind of how it works. Like, just seeing him interact with you is going to probably give you so many pieces of like how you can apply that to your own life and your own ways of talking and your own ways of inspiring people. So I think Simon Sinek would be the person that I would want to have dinner with.
Yeah, good answer, mate. He's got a great book. Start with why, isn't it? Next would be, what books would you recommend? And we'll exclude that one.
Yeah, so I think that funny enough, people always talk like, there's business books and that you should read. But for me, it's like more of a personal growth book that has given me the most for business, and that would be The 4 Agreements. So The 4 Agreements is an amazing book that really makes you look at life a little bit different. And you catch yourself that you've been doing these things for such a long time. And then when you actually start to pay attention to it and really focus in on what it means, I think that's where I had the most growth as a person, but indirectly also as a business leader.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite books as well. Do you want to go through the four agreements, what they are, so people know?
Yeah, I think I have to say it right, although it would be funny. But I think that it's yeah, not to make assumptions. So that's one of the most important ones. So it's like most of the time, like I always give the example. Imagine you have a waiter or a waitress come to your table and extremely rude, right? Like it's like what's going on? Like this service is terrible. So I'm making the assumption that the reason why he or she is not serving us right is because they're just someone that is just mean and really not a good person. But maybe her, like, the dad died earlier that day. I don't know, but I'm making the assumption that that person is just not providing a good service. So I think that's one, being impeccable with your word. So as a leader in business, I think that's a really important one too. Like if I tell you I'm going to do something, I should do it. Like I think it's like really being consistent with your words and really following through on your words is an extremely important trait as well. And then the last one is not taking things personally. And why that is important is because, let's say you are going through something, comes back to the same thing, right? You're going through something and you're saying to me like, why are you responding to me like this? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Like, why are you talking to me like that? Like, and I'm starting to take it personally that I think it has something to do with me rather than it has something to do with the way that that person is feeling or the way that that person is going through something. So yeah, I think that that's another one that is like kind of like it's all about communication, right? Being impeccable with your word is communication. Taking things personally is asking a question, and not making like the judgment is actually another reason that you should ask a question before you make the assumption. So yeah, I think, and then doing your best at all these things. So it's like you cannot always be perfect. So it's about making sure that you're just doing it to the best of your ability. So yeah, that kind of sums up the four, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good summary, mate. It's funny as well because like literally all personal development books, they're saying that essentially in a different way. So I think it's always good to review that book. It's amazing and it's a quick read as well for people. Like so, it's only like 100 pages. You'd read it in a day or two very easily.
Yeah.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment to date, mate, and why?
Oof. What's my biggest accomplishment? I think my biggest accomplishment is probably very early on in life. I would say at 18, going on a full scholarship to play in the US. Still till today feels like the biggest accomplishment and the biggest change in my life that set me up for everything that followed. So I think it kind of can answer the pivotal moment in life as much as what I believe is my biggest accomplishment. Getting a full scholarship to play in college in the US, I think, in my opinion, is the biggest accomplishment.
Yeah, so that kind of set the ball rolling, like making the connections, going down the path of where you are now from that experience, was it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it also is like moving to a different country. That's part of why it's such a big step in your life that you can take so much from, because all of a sudden you don't just have the perspective of the Netherlands where I grew up, but you also have the perspective of a different country like the US, and you can start to kind of shape your own culture in some way. And I think that has set me up for a lot of success, where I took the best of both worlds and start to implement that into my life. So I think that, for me, and then sports with education next to each other, and then the entrepreneurial side of the US, like combine those three things into one. And I think you can kind of understand why it makes a big difference when you do that at an age of 18, or at least started at the age of 18.
Yeah. How long did you stay in the US for?
So I think I was like 3.5 years for my undergrad. Then I played in the Netherlands for 1 year. And then I returned to the US for 2 more years. So about 5.5 years, 6 years.
Gotcha. And was there any reason why you retire for injury or any reason in particular?
So no, it's funny enough. I was playing in the US and till 2020, and then COVID hit. The season got partly canceled at that time, and then I finished my visa, and that was the beginning of so it was like I would say the beginning of 2021. Yeah, the beginning of 2021. That's when kind of I my visa ended in the US, and that's when I moved back to Europe. And that's kind of when I came to Bansko, and I played here for the local team, what is like third division semi-professional here in Bansko. And at the end of that season, they changed the regulations. So there was no foreign players allowed in the team. You had to have a Bulgarian passport to be able to participate in games. So I think it was kind of my cutoff point, and then business got so busy that I could never return to even playing like that semi-professional level. So I guess it was I wasn't called to stop, or I wasn't injured, or I just think that circumstances made it that way. Like I wanted to be here physically, and this was the only team in the area that I could play for, really, that it was logistically possible. Like I could not drive an hour every day to go train. Like that was for me not an option with all the other things that were going on. So I think that's the reason why it didn't continue.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's been very quick, so mate. Like 2020, really, everything shifted, and now you're in this pretty interesting position. What would you say are you most grateful for, and why?
I mean, I think I'm most grateful for the environment and the people that I've met that, really keep pushing that energy inside of me to really create something in this world. I think that for me now, with everything that is happening with the Web3, and like it's just really good to see the new friends and the new connections that you make, and then also the connections from the past all kind of coming together into this world, and that all finally clicks. I'm very grateful that I have all these people that are supporting me in everything that I do, and that I have the ability to travel and see different places with a purpose. Like I think before, traveling meant, okay, you want to see this cool place in Greece, but I think for me now traveling means something completely different. It means I'm going to Berlin to meet DJs for an event that I'm setting up. So the thought process of what you're doing, like I think I'm extremely grateful that I get to do everything with a purpose, and I get to surround myself with people that I really enjoy being around. So I think that those two things I am most grateful for.
Very cool, mate. What's the event? What type of music is it in Berlin?
So basically, yeah, it's funny. Like, so as a result of the Web3 incubator, I actually decided that I really was interested in the use case of doing tickets. So I'm actually next week, I'm launching the tickets for an event I'm setting up in Turkey. And it's a 5-day networking event where we would have music, conferences, and workshops. And you get to see 3 different destinations in 5 days. And the music is more like melodic, electronic, calm. It's not like too upbeat, but it's really a cool event because we have a sunrise event in Cappadocia where the air balloons are. So when the sun comes up, that's when the air balloons will also come up, and there will be a DJ playing, and we will have 90 tickets, and everybody gets to bring a +1 to the event. So a total of 180 people, where you have a really intense experience together, where you can connect, enjoy music, really do workshops and all kinds of knowledge sharing that is going to lead to building up a network in a way more personal way than any other conference is doing. So I think that's the next step for me, is that I want to also become the leader in the space and show that you can set up an event and get the tickets to be an NFT with nobody knowing that their ticket that they just purchased was an NFT. So we're making it that when you buy it, you don't even realize you're buying an NFT, but you now have something that will forever live in your wallet, that you can show that you were at the first year of this event. And if you ever wanted to sell it, you have the ability to do so now. So think about tickets, like Ticket Swap, they are doing that now, but now you don't need Ticket Swap anymore because you can do it on your own accord. So I just, yeah, I wanted to do that. And I'm going to Berlin to meet some of the DJs that I would want to perform at the event in Turkey.
Oh, cool, mate. Very, very good. Yeah. Well, Berlin is definitely the place to find the best DJs in the world. Awesome, my man. So, last question. If you could put something on a billboard which would reach millions, if not billions of people, what would you say on it and why?
I would put life-centric over work-centric on the board, on the billboard. And why? Because I think that we need to get away from the feeling of that 9 to 5s are okay. I think that we should strive to live our dreams and live our passions and things that we love. And I think that that means that you're living a life-centric life rather than a work-centric life. And I think that's extremely important. And if that means you have to move to a different country to make your finances meet, then I think it's always the better choice than to stay in the hamster wheel and live your whole life to work rather than live your whole life to live. So that would be my billboard.
Good message, mate, and good way to finish the episode. And yeah, definitely, I think it's easy to kind of get caught in the trap of just working and then letting things pass you by. So let's finish with some, I guess, where people can find out more about you. Where are you active? Are you on social media? Do you have a website? If you want to look at like events that you're organizing, where's the best place to touch base?
I would say Instagram or Twitter, and then it's like at Lars NFT. So it should be fairly straightforward. You can find me anywhere at Lars NFT, larsnft.com. All these places, they have the same name, so you can really find it all across the board. And then from there, I have all the information of the different projects that I'm working on. So you can easily find whatever you're interested in, you can find from there.
Awesome, mate. I'll link all that in the show notes, okay?
Perfect.